Okay. And is everyone hearing me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We're so grateful for your company. We're so grateful for you to join us for this conversation tonight. And good evening. So thank you. This is the first time we've assembled such an event, and it's a really special night to do it. And I'm going to tell you all about why. But thank you for being here for the creative process, protecting the arts for our youth. We're thrilled to host this important dialogue about the role of arts education in the lives of young people and the responsibility that we all share so that every child has access to the arts. So I'm Rich Sudo. I'm the executive director of LEAP. I've been proud to have that role for about 10 years, and LEAP is heading into its 50th anniversary. Where we have been providing programs in the arts in New York City public schools for all of those years. And they are programs that help young people pursue their passions, develop their strengths, and amplify their voices. At LEAP, we know the arts are not optional, and we believe they must be accessible, especially for youth and young people gain the skills, confidence, and creativity they need to become collaborative leaders of tomorrow. And that's very much the vision of LEAP. We've gathered this panel tonight for many reasons. We all know that this past couple of weeks was the first days of New York City's 1-point-something million children going back to school. Those of you in the room also know that LEAP's programs began over the past couple of weeks while we're bringing programs in the arts into the school day, as well as running our comprehensive after-school programs beginning this week. But perhaps more importantly, we come together at a time when our community is facing enormous challenges. Funding and policies that favor equity in education, especially for young people in communities of color, are on the line right now. This is coupled with many arts and culture institutions being forced to respond to censorship and content restrictions that attempt to limit how and what we can present and whose voice is allowed to be heard. But we're here because we're believers in the power of arts. We know that creative experiences and the creative process are part of the solution. We know that arts programs model compassion and teach empathy, that they help young people listen to one another, speak on their own voice, and process issues that matter most to them in their communities. The arts give children safe and constructive ways to explore differences, to share perspectives, and to discover their own potential, and ultimately, they equip the next generation with the imagination, resilience, and problem-solving skills they need to navigate what will absolutely surely be a more complex world than the one we're experiencing today. And yet, despite all of this promise, we continue to see a familiar and frustrating cycle. Periods of investment followed by opportunities of disinvestment. Funding cuts, shifting priorities that threaten to undermine the progress that we make each time the arts become distributed throughout each of the schools that need them most. And that's why tonight's conversation is important. My hope is that you'll not only leave informed and inspired by our brilliant panelists, but also energized to take what you hear back to your communities and back to your networks. Because together, through ongoing advocacy and ambassadorship, we can have the influence and build the momentum needed to protect the arts for our youth, for our schools, and for our futures. So I thank you all for being here, and that's the end of my comments. We're now about to hear from the amazing group that sits beside me. All right. How are the lights? Be all right, sit still. Right. So I'm just going to share some brief bios and a moment of gratitude with each of our panelists. Starting in alphabetical order by last name, Tariq Aman Washington Jr. Tariq Aman Washington Jr. is a Brooklyn-born performer, writer, director, and educator, raised in a musical and artistic family where his passion for the performing arts was nurtured from an early age. He began his journey singing in church, which soon led him to both stage and screen with appearances on PBS Theater Talk and CUNY's TV's Let It Rip. As a writer, educator, and director, Tariq is deeply committed to using art as a vehicle for education, empowerment, and social change. Tariq is currently developing his debut cabaret show, A Night of Soul, My Love Letter to Hip Hop and R&B, a personal and musical tribute to the genres that shaped his voice, his artistry, and his identity. I have tickets to this show. It is November 15th at 1 o'clock at the Green Room 42. And all of you can find out how to be there for Tyreek and for his artistry by asking Tyreek to send you the It is not optional. And Leap is grateful for Tyreek because he is a Leap alumnus who attended our after-school program, and he was a lead cast member. You can see both the grown-up Tyreek on the screen and the kid Tyreek on the screens now and again. In the first youth production of The Movement, the first Leap youth production of The Movement, an a cappella musical written and directed by Kathy D. Harrison, who incredibly is now one of Tyreek's mentors and bosses at Leap. So you can see the way this works. Thanks, Tyreek, for being here. S. Brian Jones is an award-winning and well-respected artist, writer, producer, director, and arts educator. He is the Assistant Dean of Operations and Community Engagement and also oversees the BA in Writing for Diversity and Equity in Theater and Media Arts program at Pace University. Brian has extensive experience and leadership in arts education for historically underrepresented populations and a passion for social justice advocacy. He was instrumental in starting the Playwriting in Prison program at Ferris School for Boys and Newcastle County Detention Center for Youth, which received Bravo's Excellence in Arts Education Award. Leap is grateful for Brian because he's partnered with our signature program and performing arts team to advise on program development and to serve as an adjudicator for our next Narrative Monologues program. So thank you for that. Senator Carrillo is the Senior Vice President, Programs and Strategic Initiatives for the All-Stars Project. We're grateful for them hosting us tonight. As a member of the executive leadership team, she oversees the design and implementation of programs across all of their markets, leads national strategic initiatives, and is responsible for the management of the All-Stars Project regional directors. While I'm on the topic, I want to say thank you to all of our hosts from the All-Stars Project. You are always so gracious and generous in the way you treat Leap when we come to your space, and so we're grateful for your partnership. Back to Sade. Sade serves as a regional and national spokesperson for the organization and is listed as one of ROI-NJ's 2023 influencers, people of color, and was named, I love this one, and was named the Newark Venture Partners as one of the 10 badass girl bosses of Brick City. What I say in bios, and I kept that one. Passionate about performance and a dancer for much of her life, Sade spent 15 years prior to joining the All-Stars Project working in local, state, and federal nonprofit sector, where she provided innovative community-based education to thousands of young people and their families. Leap is grateful for Sade because she, along with several of her colleagues that I mentioned tonight, are working with me to explore strategic collaboration that may include Leap having the opportunity to use this space even more than we are today, and to share in this amazing center's potential for bringing conversations like this and young people's experiences and performances to this space on 42nd Street. So thank you. Kimberly Olson is an arts educator and leader in arts education advocacy as the executive director of the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable. Kim works with a large network of organizations to provide strategic, field-wide leadership and create community-led learning experiences and to advocate for arts education in New York City and New York State. Kim serves on New York City Public Schools Arts Committee to the panel on education policy and was a committee member on Mayor Eric Adams' transition team on arts, parks, and culture. She also, very importantly, and I remember this well, Kimberly also oversaw the creation and administration of the largest COVID-19 Teaching Artist Emergency Relief Fund in the country, bridging public and private support to re-grant over $1 million to New York City teaching artists. She knowledge as part of Stephen State's inaugural Arts and Culture Power 100 list. Yes, we are among them. We are among badass bosses. And Leap is grateful to Kim because she's a tireless representative and advocate for New York City arts education. We, as Leap, and many of those that are arts educators in the room, are only able to serve the children we do because we ride on the enormous wake created by Kimberly and her activism and advocacy for arts education. Thank you. Woo! And lastly, but absolutely not leastly, Audrey St. Clair serves as the Assistant Commissioner for Program Services at the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. Currently, Audrey manages the Program Services Unit, which administers approximately $60 million annually to arts and culture organizations, including me, in New York City through the Cultural Development Fund and City Council initiatives. Previously, Audrey served as the Director of Arts Partnerships at the Arts Office of New York City Public Schools, where we were also so fortunate to work closely with Audrey. In this capacity, she developed robust partnerships between arts and culture organizations and the 1,600 New York City Public Schools. A graduate of Spelman College. Always leave room for those applause. And an alumni of Spinks Lead, Audrey is an arts advocate and administrator that's created sustainable arts programs for children, families, and communities for her entire career. And Lead is grateful for Audrey because of her leadership and stewardship of programs in the arts throughout New York City Public Schools in each of her roles. Thank you, Audrey. Now it's your turn to talk. So I'll have questions for the group and also invite opportunities for you to build on each other's responses. We'll try, as I said earlier, not to make this feel like Jeopardy, but instead to make this feel like a really great conversation about a topic that we're all passionate about. You can all notice that I talk with my hands and it's really hard to keep the mic at my mouth, so if you're not hearing me at any time, somebody can give me the wink or the heads up and I'll know that. And each of you should know you have wireless mics, you can pass those, and some of you that are theater professionals might not need them. So starting out with something brief and open-ended, but this is clearly a challenging time in many ways. It's a weighty time for those in roles like ours, and so we'll keep this question opening up light. To help us start off with a positive vibe, please share a phrase in response to, the world would be a better place if everyone, ... The world would be a better place if everyone
drank water, man.
Come on.
If we all walked with more love and understood that we're all human beings going through different things at different times, I think the world would be a better place with that.
And with that, I'm going to veg you back off the tirade, and I'm going to say we led with grace. We all found enough grace for one another right now.
I'm going to say, still not working, but it's okay. If we pay it forward, just pay it forward.
Say if we check 1, 2, check 1, 2. If we treat others the way that we want to be treated, kindness, compassion, empathy.
I would say if we had a little bit more sunshine in our lives, then I think the world would be a better place.
Thanks, everyone. Is everyone hearing them okay? Even though that mic's great. It keeps us intent. Thanks, everyone, for starting off that way. Advice for us all. So I'm going to start with a question that I'm going to ask each of you to answer. And I'll welcome you to go in any order you'd like. And so if we can start us off, just give us what you think is your brief elevator pitch, or maybe the more timely prompt is, TikTok script, about why arts matter in education and to young people. What is your brief elevator script? What's your just short pitch?
Why arts education matters. Art is, performing arts, and any version of art is, to me, and to the work we do, the most foundational part of human life. It really is the way people learn how to learn. And it's the best tool to develop human beings. So art is at the root. It should be essential. It's critical to human life. And yeah, that's what we do.
Thanks, Jim.
Arts education matters because we know, factually, we've done the scientific work back in the 90s, to know that the arts education creates well-rounded children. And it really provides space for the critical hours, better known as the critical hours policy, written back in the late 80s, early 90s. So we know that's why. And I'll keep it to the factual. That's why arts education matters, specifically to the communities that we're talking about.
I don't know. I don't think more than happy to do that.
Yeah, arts education matters because the arts are essential people to express themselves, for them to exude confidence, for them to communicate and empathize with their neighbor. And so through a strong arts education background and foundation, that's how we're able to really see each other for who we are and continue to learn skills that will help us be contributors to society, to be global citizens. So the arts are not only important because, they are a driver of our economy, but they're also important because they are who we are as people.
I think to add to that, of course, we all went through the pandemic, about 5 years ago, and during that time, we saw communities, whether it be young people, people of all ages, turning to the arts, turning to that as a form of understanding the world around them, understanding more about themselves, building community. And I resonate with what you're saying, Audrey, in terms of it being foundational. It's foundational to who we are as humans, it's foundational to how we understand ourselves in the context of this big, broad world that we're in. And it's arts education that's really that seed, that having that exposure, arming our young people with those tools and resources that helps really just illuminate such a broad range of skills, ideas, and just exciting sparks that then last with students a lifetime.
Yeah, piggyback off of that,
just the idea that art is just freedom. It's vulnerability. It's one of the few places where we could express ourselves at our fullest form and feel what it is to live and to live a life and to be in this world with each other. So having that incorporated into our educational standpoint when we're learning about each other, it's imperative for people to know and to understand.
very much.
That mic.
Okay.
And I just want to give everyone a heads up that we are going to have an opportunity for questions from the audience. So if you have something churning, write it down in your mental or physical way, and we'll have questions at the end. So Tyreek, if you had to share one trait about yourself that has been cultivated through your LEAP journey, what would it be, and how did it develop?
Okay. I would say, LEAP has been very instrumental in my journey for sure. Like, I've been here for almost 9 years now, so I started when I was no, not quite.
Young people don't lie about that.
I started when I was 11 here at LEAP, and I can say that, LEAP became like this second family for me, where it was reinforcing and reteaching everything that I was learning at home. So, and that has a lot to do with the teaching artists that I had and that surrounded me, like Miss Yvette back there, like Miss Harrison, who kind of poured into me and saw me and where I was in my artistry. And they also, recognized and incorporated the village and people that I came from, which helped a lot. So I had really no other choice but to be bold and to take up space and to be confident, because I had to deal with that at home, and then I had to deal with Ms. Harrison going and at me in rehearsal. So I had no choice. The LEAP reminded me of who I was, the teachings of my family, who I wanted to be, and where we need to go. So that's what I would say.
Thanks, Tyreek. And while it's an independent relationship that we have with Brian and Tyreek, Brian is a professor and program leader at PACE, and Tyreek studies there. So I'm going to ask you, Brian, please, how does participation in the arts align with college access and readiness?
Well, I'll look at my 4 college students in the audience.
Yeah, shout out to PACE students in the house.
These are my 4th-year students, and so going back to what I was saying earlier in the arts, creating well-rounded students from elementary or middle school to high school usually creates a trajectory of students having an interest in the arts. And it usually, when you get into second higher education, you usually have students who are transitioning from being in a program like LEAP and going into an academic program. And I would say this, they feed one another. And I'm sure Tyreek would be able to add to that, getting into the very competitive SANS school, the acting program, as did our students in our own program. But I definitely think it really permeates that journeys that I feel that I can do this, that there is a path from my community, from my high school to actually then going to college. And we are now dealing with how do we bring the arts in the bigger picture under the humanities and what role they play in the humanities as opposed to them in two separate areas. We tend to think of humanities and think of English and English teachers and sociology and all that kind of stuff. But how do we partner these two together to make sure that students are getting healthy? What I would say, from students getting early career arts exposure, which all my students, I just asked them before we started, I was like, did you participate in art programs in high school and middle school? And they're like, yes, yes, we did. And I really do think it feeds students for future careers in the arts. I participated in arts programs as a young person, even when there wasn't access for me to arts programs where I grew up at, but it certainly did feed my passion for arts programming. So that's why I'm saying one does feed the other. And even when I work with your programs, we're working on a bridge program trying to, how do we get college access for students who are going through a program like this, so they have that exposure. They're already sitting in it in middle school and high school, so it's possible.
We're excited about those possibilities, Brian, thanks. And Sade, we're talking a little bit about higher education, talking about these skills that were built when Tariq was 11 and LEAP. Can you tell us a little bit about how your work in arts engagement and performance invests in youth workforce preparation? How it readies young people for their careers and their life at work?
That's a great question. So, All Stars Project has been around for 40 years. And for the past 25 years, a little more than that now, we have been, I want to say, pioneers in the high school internship experience. Meaning we have connected young people from underserved communities to Fortune 500 companies and paid internships all across the nation. And I love when people ask us, well, what does performance have to do with an internship? Well, the interesting thing about that is that young people who come from marginalized communities every day deal with unpredictable lives. I know you all have had either stories or anecdotes where young people might wake up and they're going to school and on the bus, who knows what's gonna happen, what's gonna, unveil to them. And they have to then go to school and either act like they didn't just see that fight or act like that, they don't have to duck between cars because they're playing all types of games to stop themselves from becoming, victims of violence. And they're going through a lot of different things. And performance allows young people to try on new roles and have new scripts that break them out of the zip codes that the rules that apply just in those zip codes. So when we talk to corporations about how we use improv and performance to help young people, try on new costumes, have new scripts, see themselves doing things they never thought they would do, it has them break out of these roles, like narrow roles for themselves. A lot of times our young people in our communities will say, that's not for me. Those skyscraper buildings, I don't belong there. Or those are the people, the suits go do that. Well, All Stars really takes young people out of their comfort zone using improv, using this method of yes and building on and creating scenarios and environments that allow them to become familiar with the unfamiliar or comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you really take a look around nowadays, that's what success looks like in terms of being in the workforce. You have a whole lot of conversations that are coming on now that young people, adults, but definitely new college-age kids, or I should say adults, don't necessarily know how to show up for work. People don't necessarily know how to be engaged in the workplace. But All Stars, our young people are prepared to perform in these new environments. They can shake your hand, they can sit in the meeting, they can do things that at one point maybe they didn't think they could have, and performance allows that.
Yes, and.
Yes, and.
I teach in my program always my students about yes and it's always based on improv. So that's
The building blocks.
Thanks, Brian. You can hold on to the mic. So, getting back to this part of my opening comments was a little bit about what we might be experiencing as a darker cloud than we'd like to have in our times right now. How do arts experiences help young people navigate a world that feels increasingly complex polarized or uncertain for them?
Dialogue. It creates dialogue. It creates conversation. It creates opportunity to create beyond the means. Our program really looks at students telling their authentic story from the communities they are from, and not looking for validation or permission to tell those stories, which is why it's called Writing for Diversity and Equity. It's about students developing their authentic story. And with that, it's dialogue and community. So the center of our program is community, because in the arts, you're always going to be working with different communities. And so how do you develop that? And that is a life skill that goes on beyond what, like someone said, whether you are in the arts or not, you are always going to be working with communities, no matter where you work. But I would say at the basis, it's the dialogue that's happening, the discourse that's happening. We have a lot of it in my program currently, but it's great. It creates an opportunity. I'll just share this little short story. So a year ago, after the election happened in the springtime, me and my program coordinator got together. We were terrified. We're like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? How do we have this conversation? How do we have this dialogue? How do we, because my student represents all the groups that are under attack. Every group that's under attack, I have a student in my program who represents, who comes from that community. And so we decided that we would do nothing. We would just create this space for them to come in the room and have whatever conversation they wanted to have. Because too many adults were telling them how they should feel and what is going on with them. Again, the dialogue. They came in the room, this was a great life lesson for both of us, and we talked about Sabrina Carpenter. I learned so much about Sabrina Carpenter that day. And the other one, I can't remember. Chucky Chaperone, that was thank you all for that. But what it learned us, and this is the truth, that we had created a safe space for our students where they were able to come to just be who they are. And they didn't need us to do anything extra. And I think that's the dialogue that and so we did. I went with it. I did go with it. It was a.
You improvised.
Yes. I yes and the moment. No, that's not. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that home. Yeah, I would definitely say that. In conversation.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks a lot. Kim, so we're going to talk a little bit about what everybody can do to advance arts education, but we're still also wanting to sort of arm them with the information, and then they'll be able to take that to the to-do. So when you're thinking about that, what's the cost to a student, to a school, or to the city when the arts are left out?
I mean, it's massive. Rich, as you were introducing the panel, you listed off so many benefits of arts education. And I say all the time that arts education has a marketing problem because it does so many amazing things. It can be hard to package it up in a way that makes sense to folks that are not immediately familiar with what that spark looks like. And so what's on the line? Things that we've talked about: dialogue, empathy, being able to visualize goals and outcomes, being able to work with other people that might be different from who you are, being able to.
And there's so much going through my head at this very moment. Just specifically from the funding and creating new programs. So from the higher education, I would say we have to create new programming that really appeals to young people, that can really show new careers. And I just say that with this particular major in general. When I first came on board, it was a whole different concept. But what I went to in the 21st century, in the year of 2021, when I started, was this idea of student-centered education, putting students' voices at the center of the program, specifically for those students who have gone through arts programming in middle school and high school. So my students come into classes and people immediately know they're students from the Writing for Diversity and Equity. And it's all of these things that we give to them in this program, right? And I knew that I had to look at higher education differently. I couldn't do what Free Air calls Viking education, it was called Free Air Pedagogy Press. And really stepping out, how are we going to get students to continue to want to go into the arts, into the humanities, beyond the performer, beyond, I want to be a star on Broadway. I want to be the actor. We're needed everywhere. So I thought about the trickle down effect. I left my comfy job with Gramercy Park. And when I saw this job posting, because I realized that if I started with the writer who felt that I had an authentic story to tell, that it would be cast with people from that community, that would then employ specifically our program is writing words that create the media. Our students take classes, sociology, disability, journalism class. And it's for those writers who want to be responsible writers. So again, that dialogue, that conversation. I don't decide what shows they go to. They decide what shows they want to go to. Again, putting the power in their hand. And also showing up. And how do you show up? Now, as far as funding goes, that's a very tricky question. And I will say this, because I was under philanthropy, right? I was under the Rothschild, that grant is in it. They're not funded because of the shift of what's happening in the country. As a matter of fact, I can say this, sorry about this. As a matter of fact, the ED really spoke to our president and said, well, they should change the name. If they change, and I was adamant about not changing the name, because I shut no one out of our program. Everyone is welcome to the program, from whatever community, because that's what it should not be in higher education. But we are really challenged because our campus is right in the university. Everyone's a right. I'm not judging that. We're not going to near that. So you have to think outside the box. So I get it. So I want to look at people who come from marginalized communities who might have money, people who really would believe in something like this. And I found one funder who committed $100,000 over 7 years. But that funds my social justice, my community service, and my taking my students to see actual artwork. But then I feel like, well, if I have one person from that community, I can certainly find somebody who might want to match that 100,000. And if they didn't have it, maybe they had 50, or 25, or 10, or 5, or 100, or 250, $25, $2.50. I'll take 99. You got a penny? I mean, really. And it seems weird, but I've been doing this for a long time. Back in the late 80s, that's what we had to do. I mean, yes, I don't stop. That is what we had to do. Like, we had to go to all sources to find the funding. And then, unfortunately, I think that's kind of where we are now. I mean, I really would love to hear more from the policy, we're coming down on the policy part. But it's a scary time. I'm not going to say it's not a scary time for people who are trying to develop new programming initiatives, specifically under the umbrella of DEI or any gender-based class. But I don't think that that's being shifted, because I'm seeing the change in what's happening. My alumni is currently studying consistently right now. I have another student who just started an internship today at the dimension. So we're seeing the direction of what's happening with the students. And it gets scary for people who are seeing this community. It's just a melting pot sitting right in front of you, right? And so that scares people that's happening in the process. But we have to fight for it. I think there are people out there that will fund it, and there are people who are interested, and students who are interested. We just have to do more. And when I say first, let's rip up the box and just think. And I'm going to leave that there because of me.
Thanks, Brian. Those are things that are true to our values, and we will outride, we will outlast this.
Absolutely. With
Thank
this
you.
power right here. All this power in this room right
Yep.
here. We're going to outlast it. They're going to beat it down. I'm real.
Sade. So we're talking about audiences and how these audiences receive this message and how we can all be, most prepared. What about the corporate audience that often All-Stars find themselves engaging with? What is that explanation? What does that argument look like to justify performance as a means of preparing people for that role?
That's a great question. When it comes to the workforce, I want to back up a little bit. Our connection with our corporate community is around involvement philanthropy. So it's not just the funding that they give us. It really is them rolling up their sleeves, participating, volunteering, and connecting with their young people and building community with them. And we use performance to help bridge that so that we can have dialogue and new conversation. So partly what you're seeing is when you break down the barriers, these corporations and their cultures can shift to welcome different types of people in them and have a more diverse workforce. And I think that's really important. I think another way that at least our corporate community is responding to some of the divestment in the arts is actually some of what we're actually sitting in it right now. Like we're in the process of thinking about creating this nonprofit center where all types of organizations that feature arts and performance and things like that can come under one house and serve the greater New York community and serve a lot of young people just like we're doing together. And our our corporate community is getting behind that because they recognize that it's just as important to support kids' youth development and them growing through the arts, so that way they can add to the ecosystem. So it goes both ways in a way that you're trying to either break down or blur the line between corporate and community, and recognize that it's just one big community, and that arts and performance allows that landscape to be played on.
Thanks, Sade. And Tyreek, as a young person pursuing a career in the arts, which we're all positive will be successful for you, especially if everyone turns out on November 15th. What do you want all of us older people to understand about why this work matters for your generation?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I would just like everyone to understand, regardless of age, is that community in the arts really matters, and that it's really needed for young artists to have, especially in the transition period of time where we're trying to figure it out. But also, like, as we all said too, money. But I would say community. For me, at least, I have a community like I have, all of you, so it helps. But just the idea of really just doing this alone is daring for a lot of artists, and to not lean on someone is hard. And especially, not to plug my own show, but that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the show, is because I was just tired of always being the only person of color in the cast. And I was just like, there's no one I can really turn to in these moments to be like, you see what's happening? Like, there's nothing, like, I couldn't do that. So building and creating that community was really important for me. And speaking to the cast that I'm with now, is important for other artists to find. So if we can create opportunities where we can find this community, it would definitely help the art, it would definitely help create change within the arts.
Thanks, Tyreek. We're going to have room for a couple audience questions, and so I'm going to ask Kim to bring it home from my questions. Kim, can you just share what is one thing that everyone in this room can do to advance arts education support?
Just one.
Well, I know you got a
I will say your voice matters. It matters tremendously, and especially in the times that we are in, the one piece of advice that I give everyone is contact your elected officials, whether it be about arts education or something else that matters to you. Your voice, I can't tell you how important it is for our elected officials to be hearing from us at this moment. And I'm talking at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. There's a fabulous resource that if you look up Who Represents Me, NYC, that you're able to go in and put in your address. You can see your city, state, federal officials, their contact information, phone number, their address. A huge resource. I will say that is not available in most other parts of the country. And what I find as an advocate in talking to these elected officials who are making decisions, like this historic investment in arts and culture, we'll say a similar investment mirrored in arts education as well this year with $41 million baselined in New York City for arts ed, it was really a campaign of folks, some of whom are in this room, sending an email, tagging folks on social media. If you see them in the grocery store, say, hey, it's great to meet you. I'd love to tell you arts education matters to me in my school. And why? It is that sort of just outreach, building relationship, educating, that really is what ends up moving the needle. So I can't tell you, contact your elected officials, know who they are, and build those relationships, because that's how change happens, and that's how we're able to get greater equity and access, participation in arts education across our city, our state, and ultimately our country.
We have a few minutes for questions from the audience. Question. I'll make sure we repeat it so everybody hears it. Does anybody have something you'd like to ask? Yes. Can you share your name and share your question?
Sure. Hi everyone. My name's Rachel. I work at Arts Connection. I'm one of the things, just listening to y'all talk and about kind of protecting the arts for youth is, the talking about diversity and how important that is, and multiple voices. And I started to think about who or what outside of the field of the arts or education, maybe even politics and corporations, corporate philanthropy, can help protect or reimagine the future of arts for young people?
Who outside of those four?
Who or what? Yeah. Because I think we have to diversify how we think about the future of the field. And that's one way you diversify. So it's a question.
I can start with that. I couldn't agree more. That arts and culture, arts education, we are fabulous at being an echo chamber and advocating to ourselves about how great arts is, how great arts education is. But in order for us to be able to build towards having that sustainability, that stability in the sector, we have to invite in those other folks. And for me, that is thinking about how are we involving health and human services, hospitals. There's a huge movement right now in terms of social prescribing and arts prescribing, seeing the value of arts as a means of supporting one's physical and mental health. How can we involve those people in the conversation? I think, of course, too, what you said in terms of education, higher ed, of course, as well. I also think about those folks that might have had arts as that seed in their experience as a young person, but then possibly go on to other careers, say in technology as well. I'm a huge proponent. You will not hear STEM from me. It is STEAM all the way. All the way. And there's an artistry to that. And how are we building those connections as well, so that when the time comes and we need to say, hey, arts are on the chopping block, we have that chorus of voices. Here's other folks on the panel. What do you think?
Well, one of the things that we're doing at the Department of Cultural Affairs is being really strategic with the partnerships that we have with other city agencies, particularly our partnership with the Economic Development Corporation. We also have a partnership with the Department for Aging, Department for Youth and Community Development for After School, just really trying to extend the work that the agency is doing, highlighting the work that artists are doing throughout the city, as well as arts and cultural organizations among the various city agencies, so that we're creating more buy-in, more knowledge, and synergy where we can partner with one another to help each other's objectives move forward.
Very good. Great. Is there another question from the audience? Yes.
Hi, my name is Julia. I am a teaching artist with a company called Luminart. I'm a sub in the DOE system, and I'm freshly, this is my first semester as a grad student in CCNY's art education program. I might ramble a little bit because I'm not entirely sure how I'm trying to phrase what I'm trying to ask, but there seems to me to be a lot of black and white conversation in how we talk about arts. It's either one way or the other way, and there's very little in-between space. And I'm seeing that a lot with some of my students is they're losing that ability to kind of talk about these things in that way. There's either, the conversation about how much money you can make as an artist, what you can do here, there, like how you can be productive and successful as an artist, or, why art doesn't matter. And there's no real bridge, I feel like, between the two spectrums of thought. And I think the thing I've been struggling with lately is how to kind of have a conversation that's really like when a student comes to me and is like, how can I be successful as an artist? Or how can I make money, really, is the question as an artist. A lot of the times I've been telling my students, it's like, does art make you happy? How do you be happy as an artist? And what I'm finding from people I work with, sometimes it's a little bit like, why is passion a dirty word? Why are dreams a dirty word? Why is love a dirty word in these kinds of conversations? How do we start having more complex conversations that really kind of break down just, money and, results, as opposed to just why you make art and what makes you happy?
I'm going to hand you this mic so you can drop it.
I was literally just having this conversation with my acting teacher today, because, so it's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel the same way of just like there's either one way
my acting teacher, so I can't even take credit for saying this, is that we need to look at the humanity of things and looking at it from the perspective of, like we talked about it from a character lens of like looking at it from, yes, I might not be able to play this part, but if I do play the part, who is this person? What is their story? And how does it impact me? And that's how I look at how art is. Yes, it is sometimes a struggle to really make money, but sometimes you get that great story and you get that great art and you are able to change lives and change the way you even view yourself. Like, I'm going to be very honest, I act and I am changed by the words that I am saying. I am changed by the feelings that I'm feeling as I'm going across the scene. So as long as we continue to have that level of vulnerability and humility and humanity, I believe that ultimately everything else will fall into place and everything else will be okay. But it is hard. But I believe that it will be just fine.
I wanted to offer just the opportunity for one more question. Brian, please, and then.
Yeah, I just wanted to add this to answer your question in another way as a leader, as a program leader, is reframe the dialogue that is happening, right, to your participants, right? So you can send the message, are you chasing fame? Are you developing as a citizen artist? So in my program, I develop citizen artists, which is really what is your commitment as a citizen, both domestically and globally, because there's a lot of money out there globally, and we need to stop in this country teaching just Broadway, Hollywood. Here's something. Even if you live beyond, you can do it online and all that. But I would say reframe it with everyone, with your leaders, from when they come into the program, right? Because it's okay to chase if that's what you're after. If that's not what the basis of your program is, then that would leave you the teaching artist in a confident with your participants.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay,
Last question.
statement versus the question.
Yes.
Thank you. I do want to piggyback off what you said. Sorry, my name is Naima Khalil, the director of youth programs here at All Stars Project. And I do want to make a statement based off what you said earlier, which is totally impactful in terms of like how we're utilizing our elected officials. In that sense, it's how we're doing that in numbers and goals, because especially around, I would say, election time is when they have these discretionary funds that people need to kind of go to the community boards, and that's when they're addressing like that matter of like, here's where your money could be properly funded, and that's where we can get the money when it comes to like our education, in terms of continually making sure that they're part of the solution and part of like the advocacy of like continuing our education, because our elected officials are still very disconnected from the importance of what it is to have our education within our schools, within our communities, and we need to be able to utilize them as a resource. So between our community boards and between our going to our elected officials, because they have offices right in our communities, right there on the blocks, on the corner, where we then can go in and advocate for those art education advances, so we can continually get the money funneled back into our education. So I wanted to thank you for that and utilize like people to be able to know that this is something that we should be able to kind of do. I go to community boards all the time, and we talk about things that we do all the time, and it's just like something we do together. This is how we are funneling back to our education. Thank you.
Thank you. Great thing to conclude on, and something to highlight about All Stars Project and their strengths they've had in community building, in messaging, in organizing, and making sure that the things that we all know are important to the communities we care about are voiced in all kinds of ways. And I really appreciate you bringing that as a closing comment from the audience. So, thank you. I want to share my most sincere gratitude to each of you for being a part of this tonight. I have to say, as a moment of humble bragging, we were 5 for 5 in getting the panelists that we would have dreamed could have been here. There's a couple things I want to share is that we are very excited because today LEAP released our first ever online interactive annual report. Shout out to the team So I think we're going to put a QR code up on the screen that will get you to LEAP's first, again, online interactive annual report. The other thing I want to share is is that for the last, that's our program, that's another thing you can get from QR, but the other thing I want to share is for the last several years, one of our board members and their spouse, Bianca Kofal and Josh Kirk, have put together an amazing silent auction for us, which is a fundraiser for back to school at LEAP. So take a look at the silent auction that you can also find on our website and on many of the QR codes around the room. You don't have to just wait for the screen run, and check it out. If you like food, if you like drink, if you like golf, if you like vacationing in the Cape, you have an opportunity to purchase one of those things. And that silent auction is ending on Sunday. So get it now and be competitive. Bid early, bid high. And I also want to thank all the members of the LEAP staff and board of directors that are here today. Thanks for showing up and showing out. Also the members of the All-Stars staff and our partners on that side. We really appreciate all of you. I want to do a special particular thanks to my team that put this together today, Janeda, Madison, and Teresa, for all the hard work. And Gabe up in the booth, can't forget Gabe. And thank you all for joining us for Protecting the Arts for Youth. I hope you all feel prepared. I hope you all feel confident. All the things we talked about that you gained from arts education, you all got from listening to this panel. So go out there and use it. Be adaptive, be improvisational. Brian has something to say, and I will please.
It's really quick. She's like, everybody, let's thank Rinse out over.